Ben Langley, The Three Ls. The Three Ls, Ben Langley.
"21 years ago, I started training at Kopic's Kimpo Karate in Colorado Springs. I trained there for about 3 times a week for 7 years. I mostly train at home now, but recently it occurred to me just how much what I learned there has had impact in my health, my relationships, my work, and most importantly, my satisfaction with life. One of the most powerful experiences there, one I had the pleasure of going through many times, was the belt test. At the end of the test, my instructor would have us take our old rank, place it vertically in front of us, and our new belt, and place it horizontally in front of us, forming the letter L. Then he would say, this L can stand for many things. The first thing this L can stand for is a lie. If you feel in your heart you did not earn this rank, we can put it aside, do some more training, and test again at a later date. I never put a belt in front of anyone who didn't earn it. But if you feel you didn't earn it, you have the right to refuse it. Now, as I think about this, it's very useful to be aware of where we're not being honest. But it's most important to recognize where we're not being honest with ourselves. Back in 2015, I was at least 80 pounds overweight. At least. I'd been yo-yo dieting for about 22 years up until that point, always assuming the permanent solution to the problem was just one diet or exercise trick away. But I was lying to myself. I hadn't accepted the real challenge. In my case, it was gluttony. I like to eat to excess. I had lost weight numerous times before, but never kept it off for more than a year. When I accepted my challenge with gluttony, I lost the weight and kept it off. A total of 93 pounds, and I've kept it off for almost 7 years now. They say the truth will set you free. I don't know if I'm free yet, but anywhere in my life where I recognize the lie, I accept it and I let it go, my life gets better. It's well worth your time to be on the lookout for the lie in your life. Then my instructor would say, the next thing this L can stand for is love. You gotta love karate. You gotta love it. If you don't, get out. It's too painful. To speak broadly and simply about love, there's 2 factors I consider absolutely critical. You have to have the sense of focus, the grit, the determination to keep coming back to what's important to you, even when it's tough. But you also have to have a sense of humor, some playfulness, the ability to bring some levity to a situation, even when it gets tough. My father was a naval pilot for over 20 years. His initials were JR, and some of his friends would call him that. When he was feeling playful around me or my sisters, he'd talk about himself in the third person. The great JR, knows all and sees all, man among men, the greatest maritime patrol pilot that ever lived. He'd switch it up from time to time, but it always ended the same way. A legend in his own mind. Dad had a sense of humor about himself. He was a great pilot and he was a great father. Part of the reason was his focus, his ability to keep coming back what was important to him, even when it was tough. But another reason was his sense of humor, his ability to laugh at himself and help all of us laugh at the situation, even when it was tough. Focus and humor are both critical parts of love. And if you're going to do it, you got to love it. Then my instructor would say, the last thing this L can stand for, lots and lots to learn. There's an old Earl Nightingale quote. Never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take. The time will pass anyway. I wish someone had told me this in college. I was a philosophy major for a while. I really enjoyed it, so much so that briefly I considered becoming a philosophy professor. But that required a doctorate, which meant 7 or so more years of college, which seemed like a lot at the time. Back then, I had lots of big dreams, but I didn't want to be too old before I achieved them. Too old to me back then meant around 35 or so. Well, I'm 46 now, and I'm very pleased to report I'm not too old to enjoy what I've accomplished. I've learned that the more time and focus you pour into something that's important to you, the more meaningful it becomes. And that's a good thing, because there is always lots and lots to learn. That's how my instructor would finish a belt test. And it's interesting to me, my primary goal in learning karate was to be able to defend myself, but I've never really needed to defend myself physically in my adult life. But the number of areas where my instructor's teachings have had impact keeps increasing. It's very important to be on the lookout for the lie in your life. Anywhere you recognize the lie, you accept it and you let it go, life gets better. It's very important to balance a sense of focus with a sense of humor. Because if you're going to do it, you got to love it. And it's very important to keep in mind, there is always lots and lots to learn. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Terry Bean, love you always and forever. Love you always and forever, Terry Bean.
A Native American proverb says, "Listen to your heart, it knows." Sometimes we listen, sometimes we don't. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, this story is one of those times. They met for the very first time on a hot summer night in their hometown in upstate New York. She was 15, almost 16, and he had just turned 17. She walked into their hangout where he was sitting with some friends. Oh, he was the handsomest boy she had ever seen, with that thick black hair and that curl that hung down the middle of his forehead, and those beautiful blue eyes. And she was the prettiest girl he had ever seen, with her long brown hair and those beautiful blue eyes behind her thick glasses. Their eyes met, and it was love at first sight. They went steady all through her junior and senior years of high school. After graduation, she was going to Los Angeles to become a movie star, and he had already joined the Marines. Before he left for Vietnam, he told her, "I love you, and I want to marry you when I get back. But what if something happens and I don't return?" They knew in their hearts he would return, and they would never want to marry anyone else. They wrote faithfully almost every day with plans for the future, until one night, with tears streaming down her face, she wrote, "I'm sorry for being so foolish. I went to a party and things just happened." And tears filled his eyes as he read her letter. "The baby is due in the winter? The baby is due in the winter." Spring, summer, and fall passed, and her little baby girl was born that January. She wanted him to know, and she wrote him a letter. And he wrote back, "If she's anything like you, she must be the sweetest little thing in the world." She wanted to say, "I love you. Could you ever forgive me?" And he wanted to say, "I love you and I want to marry you." But neither said those words that were in their hearts. Eventually, he married a girl from town, and she did the proper thing and married the baby's father in California. The years went on, their lives were busy. She was a homemaker with 4 small kids. He was planning his career and moving on, but they never stopped thinking of one another. 15 years from the time they first met, fate intervened. They were both divorced, and she was back in town visiting some friends. They literally ran into each other on the street where he lived. He held out his arms and said, "Let me just hold you. I love you. I always have." She fell into his embrace and said, "I've never stopped loving you." They spent a week together, hanging out with old friends, reminiscing about old times. And then it was time for her to go back to California to be with her kids. They said, "It was nice seeing you again. Hey, maybe we should do this more often. Yeah, maybe we should stay in touch more. Let's write letters, okay? Okay. Bye. Bye." He wanted to say, "Bring those kids back here. I love you and want to marry you." And she wanted to say, "I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." But neither said those words that were in their hearts. They couldn't stop thinking of one another. A few months later, fate intervened again. They decided to write to each other almost at the same time. In fact, their letters crossed in the mail. Her letter went something like this: "My dearest Maureen, I don't like Los Angeles anymore. I never see the same face twice." And she signed her letter, "Love you always and forever, your girl." And his letter went something like this: "My dearest girl, I don't like this little town anymore. I see the same faces every day." And he signed his letter, "Love you always and forever, your Maureen."
Let me cut the answer.
Their hearts said, "Answer the letter." They said, "I will, tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into days, and days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. They lost track of one another, and they never answered their letters tomorrow. I was that girl. Yes, I was the girl that did not listen to her heart. Years later, I decided to contact him. I had to find him. Maybe we could make up for lost time. I called everybody in that little town that might have known of him. And on my last call, "Hello, do you know Bruce?" "Yes, Bruce was my uncle." "Was your uncle?" "Yes, Uncle Bruce passed away last year." What if Bruce and I, all those years, said what was on our hearts? All those missed opportunities? Would my story be different? I'll never know. What about you? Is there something in your heart you need to say? What are you waiting for? Oh, don't wait until tomorrow. Listen to your heart. It knows. Madam Toastmaster.
Aaron Kanatzar, what matters most? What matters most? Aaron Kanatzar.
I'm feeling a little dangerous today. How often have you thought about death? Now, I know I'm not even 15 seconds into my speech, and some of you are thinking, did this guy actually read the criteria right? Bear with me. If you were to die tomorrow, how many people outside of your close friends and family would actually remember you when you're gone? My guess, and I don't mean to be harsh, but I'd say a solid 10, maybe 15. Do you know why? Because you don't matter. You die. Your workplace may grieve. They might even throw you a parade in your honor if you are truly exemplary. But they're still going to hire the next candidate and move on, business as usual. You call in sick one day to work, and your boss isn't going to sit around fretting all day saying, oh no, they're gone today. What are we going to do? No, that's ridiculous, right? They're going to call in the next person, fill your shift, and they're going to carry on about their day. Now, I might get stoned for this next one, but even our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to say, was denied 3 times by his closest follower. Man, Jesus must not have been that great for Simon Peter to deny him like that. The point is that you don't matter. No one cares what you do in life. Let's face it, most of you on this call today probably couldn't even tell me who Chester A. Arthur was. Just for your information, he was our 21st president of the United States. Instead of breaking your back for a job that's just going to replace you when you leave in whatever fashion that may be, or trying to impress the world because you feel like you have something to gain in the respect of others, do something that's life-giving to you. I know in my club, we have quite a few retirees. Now, how awesome to them did it feel when they finally didn't have to be tied to a job where they felt obligated to go in day after day for what? A paycheck? Now that they're retired, they can spend time with their family. They can travel. They can go skinny dipping in the Gulf of Mexico because they're old and senile and they can claim mental illness. My point is, when you are on your deathbed, looking back at your life, what do you want to see? Do you want to see someone that was stuck in a 9-to-5 because they feared the viewpoint and retribution of others? Do you want to see someone that was always tiptoeing around on eggshells because they didn't want to offend someone? Well, I'm sorry, but to the unpopular opinion of my day and age and my generation, I don't have time to ask you if you're a he, she, it, they, we, etc. I recently heard another maybe hard to digest portion of a speech from Mel Robbins, and it's this. It's very, very simple to get what you want in life, but it's not easy. You have to do the things that you need to do in order to make yourself everything that you want to be. But you are so busy waiting to feel like it. And you're never going to, ever. No one is coming. No one is coming to tell you to get up off that couch and turn off the TV. No one is coming to push you out the door and get you to exercise. No one is coming to tell you to apply for that job that you've always dreamt about. No one is coming to help you write that business plan that you always wanted to write. No one is coming. It's up to you. Think about that for just a second. How many times have you found yourself sitting in a corner pouting because you might have a little extra weight that you want gone? The $6 or whatever amount of money is in your hand. The keys to your car are in your pocket and the rec center is right down the road. And you don't want to go because that's too hard. Come on, guys. I'm not saying that you have to be a superhero like Batman or Superman or the Flash or whatever. I'm not saying that you need to go hold an office in the US government. I'm saying take time and live life for you. Take me, for example. I'm a fry cook and I love what I do. I absolutely love seeing the people come in and take that first bite of that nasty, greasy hamburger and say, this is amazing. My favorite quote is by William Ernest Henley, and it's found in a poem called Invictus. The last 2 lines really strike me hard. I am the captain of my fate. I am the master of my soul. Where are you going to steer your ship? Where are you going to take your soul? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Do you have a vision? Because if you don't, we need to have an extra conversation after this call. But if you do, great. Now get your life in order. Get your ducks in a row. Get your head screwed on straight and start living life for you. Stop letting life just happen to you when all you're going to do when you're gone is get forgotten. Get out there and make life happen, because guess what? You care, and that's what matters. Fellow Toastmasters.
Keith Bailey, let your fascination take flight. Let your fascination take flight. Keith Bailey.
Look up in the sky. Is that a bird? No. Is it Superman? Absolutely not. What you're seeing up there is my midlife crisis. A man standing out in a field flying a little remote control plane. That's right. I'm that guy. You're probably thinking to yourself, Keith, come on, seriously? Remote control planes? And the answer is absolutely. I'll tell you why. It is way cheaper than that canary yellow Corvette convertible. And it is way less drama than dating a 21-year-old yoga instructor. And of the three, well, it's the only one my wife approves of. So, remote control planes it is. And it's not so much a midlife crisis, to be honest. It's more of a midlife fascination. I've always been fascinated with flight. We've all had fascinations come and go our entire lives. Remember that time where you were fascinated with eating dirt? Well, luckily that fascination passed us by and we've moved on to greener pastures. But fascinations come and go. And a year ago, I was swept off the ground with the fascination of flight. And over the last year, I've learned something very important, 3 very important insights that I want to share with you today to help you the next time a fascination comes along, and it'll help you let your fascination take flight. I remember I'm at City Park, and in the distance is a boy holding a remote control, and his gaze is on this little plane, and curiosity gets the best of me, and I go up to him, like, hey, where'd you get that? Hobby store. How much did you pay for it? $100. I'm like, done and done. Next day, I went to the hobby store. I bought the exact same plane. I went back to City Park. I put the batteries in the controller. I put the batteries in the plane. I fired up and I'm doing it. I'm flying, albeit not that good. And also, where do all these trees come from? There's some weird thing with trees and little planes. It's like they're magnets for each other. But I'm able to avoid the trees and I make this banking turn and suddenly the plane is flying directly back at me. And that's when everything goes wrong. Because as the plane is flying at me, left becomes right, right becomes left, and I don't know what to do. And what do we all do when we panic? We freeze like fainting goats. Now that plane flies directly up over my head and whack, into a tree. That's where I learned my first insight, the importance of environment. I shouldn't be flying at City Park. I should be at an RC field, and they exist at Cherry Creek Reservoir. And this is what's incredible. I went out there and found the right environment. And the next thing that I found my tribe. I found other people that are interested in the same thing that I'm interested in. And we as Toastmasters know what this feels like. I remember it's 2014. I'm a fledgling Toastmaster and I'm sitting in the audience. And on stage is none other than Ed Tate, 2000 international speaking world champion. And he's giving his farewell speech. And at the end of his speech, imparts this knowledge upon us that really just set me free. Toastmasters is not the place you deliver your best. This is the place where you try new things. This is the place where we stretch ourselves. This is a safe place. See, within this community, within this tribe, we find our permissions to try new things. And do me a favor. when you do find your community and your tribe, do this thing that I did not do upon going out to this airfield. Have patience. Have patience. Don't be in such a hurry when you, I'm not going to sing anymore, but patience is critical. I went out to Cherry Creek. I put my plane on the taxiway. A taxiway goes out to the runway. And instead of going out to the start of the runway, I go to the end of the runway. And then I hit full gas on my plane. And you can imagine what happens. I ran out of runway before I ever got flight. The nose goes over the end, it buries itself, it kicks up and I snap and I break a wing. That's when one of the old fly dogs comes up to me and he's like, you know what's of no use to a pilot? The runway that is behind you. How insightful. We have to use the whole runway. Right? How often do we come across something, we want to find the shortcut, the cheat, the easy pill? They don't exist. And if we're really fascinated by it, give yourself the grace, put in the work. My wife is learning how to play ukulele. And she tries the same pattern over and over and over and over and over and over. And to me, that is using the whole runway. Something magical happens when you use the whole runway. You're going to find yourself gaining speed. And then suddenly you're going to feel that lift underneath your wings. You're going to feel yourself lifting up. And the next thing you know, you're flying. You're doing it. And that's where the third insight comes in. Same old fly dog comes up and he's like, as soon as you get yourself off the ground, you want to find yourself 3 mistakes above the ground. For you see, in remote control planes, when you're 3 mistakes above the ground, you have altitude. You have a buffer where you can try new things. You have the latitude, the altitude to make mistakes. We're all fallible. We all make mistakes. It's a part of learning. But how often do we not give ourselves those permissions? Let's say you've wanted to learn how to do sourdough and you've made a whole bunch of sourdoughs. You're kind of tired of it. I want to try something new. Perhaps you want to put olives into the sourdough. I don't know. Go for it. Give it a try. What's the worst that happens? Right? Bread doesn't come out right. Or if it's a plane, you crash it, which I've done many times. You just glue them back together and stick them back up in the sky. The next time that you're out there and you look up and you might see a bird, you might see Superman. Heck, you might even see an old guy like me flying a remote control plane. But remember these 3 insights. Environment, you will find the tribe, the people who will lift you up. Have patience. Give yourself the patience and use the whole runway. And third, give yourself the grace and the permission to be what we are, is human, and make a few mistakes along the way, crack a few eggs. And then you will be able to let your fascination take flight.
Justin Futrell, find an accountability buddy. Find an accountability buddy, Justin Futrell.
Good night, Mom. Did you do your homework and pack your lunch? I'll pack my lunch in the morning. Mom didn't budge. If you don't hold yourself accountable, then who will? Apparently you, Mom. I trudged downstairs to make my peanut butter sandwich, grabbed an apple off the counter and a cookie or 2 out of the cupboard, and threw them all into my favorite lunchbox. Ladies and gentlemen, contest chair, when you were young, who kept you accountable? Fast forward to today. Do you have an accountability buddy? During the first days of the pandemic, 2 incredible things happened in my life. The first was that I learned I could wear a collared shirt to Zoom meetings with clients and no pants. Second, I got to move in with my best friend, Ellie, my girlfriend. I know, Grandma, I know. You're not supposed to live together until you're married, but rent in Denver is so expensive. That's the only reason we're together. After 4 years of a long distance relationship, living in different states, even sometimes different countries, We were so excited to be together every single minute. Then we realized we had to be together every single minute. We were struggling. Have you ever worked so hard for something, but once you got there, it wasn't quite what you had hoped? Ellie knew it too. There was one day in particular I remember. We were annoyed, bickering. Ellie changed the subject. She said, Justin, I've been reading about this challenge. My friends are doing it, and they say it helps hold themselves accountable. And it's a fun thing to do as a couple, unifying. I love challenges. I learned that there were 5 things that we had to do every day. Drink a gallon of water. Do 2 45-minute workouts, but one of those has to be outside. Read 10 pages of an actual book. Choose a nutrition plan, anything you'd like, but no alcohol. Take a progress picture. I'm in, let's do it. How long? 75 days? I haven't went 75 days without drinking alcohol since my 16th birthday. I mean, 21st birthday, Grandma. Let me ask you, do you think you could do those 5 things every day for 75 days? The journey began. The first several days, my head was pounding. Oh, why did I let Ellie convince me to do a no added sugar nutrition plan? That meant I had to get rid of my favorite candy bars and cereal boxes and replace them with a hat and gloves for that 45-minute outdoor walk. Day 21. My favorite part of the day became that walk. I looked forward to feeling the fresh air and the warmth of the sun. Day 25. I was feeling very energized and mentally clear. In fact, something that I'd been putting off for months was starting a podcast. So I stayed up late one night and I launched that podcast. I went to bed so excited, and I have to say that what I learned in the first 25 days was it is great to have an accountability buddy. Because every night before bed, Ellie and I would say, hey, did you do your 5 things? Well, on day 25, I forgot to take the picture. Day 26 for Ellie and day 1 for Justin. Although she was technically much further ahead, we were in the groove. We were living ultra healthy lifestyles. We were feeling our relationship grow. And we were having fun. And on day 76, we celebrated Ellie's accomplishment of finishing. She grabbed the first glass of red wine, and I grabbed my ice water. She grabbed her second glass of red wine, and I had to leave. I have no self-discipline. The next day for me was day 52. One other dream that I've had in my life was to apply to graduate school. So that morning I sat down and I said, I'm going to do it. After hours in front of the computer, I clicked submit. Grandma, you would be proud. I woke up the next morning. Oh no. Oh no. I lost my accountability buddy. Ellie's not doing it anymore, and I forgot to go on the walk. I failed again. Do you ever feel like you took 2 giant steps forward in one aspect of your life, but a step backwards in another. I realized, reflecting on my journey, that I need an accountability buddy in my life. It doesn't matter if it's Ellie, my mom, or even grandma. What dream is bottled up inside you? What have you been putting off? I challenge you to go for it. I challenge you to ask for help. Find an accountability buddy.
Marc, April, grandmothers and grandsons, lessons learned. Grandmothers and grandsons, lessons learned. Marc, April.
I sat at the bottom of the ride. My body was trembling as the lap bar locked into place. I couldn't believe it. I dreamt of this until I heard click, 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 as the ride moved forward. All I could think about, how am I going to get through this moment? Madam Toastmaster and anyone else who's ever had to overcome a fear in their life, I could remember it like it was yesterday. I was 12 years old, and I was going to conquer the Texas cyclone. Now, what's the Texas cyclone, you may ask? Oh, it's the tallest, fastest wooden roller coaster Six Flags Astroworld has to offer. I was going to conquer it this summer. My grandmother's car pulls into the driveway. I sling the door open with excitement, jump into the front seat, and I look her right in the eye. Grandma, I'm ready to do this. And our ride to Six Flags, instantly I'm inundated with stories about bridge tournaments that her and my grandfather are doing this summer. Oh, if I could just get to Six Flags. We finally pull into the parking lot. In the distance, the beast beckons. I walk right up to that height meter, and I stand just as tall as I can. Now I need to come in this tall, and I come in right about here. Now it's in this moment I looked up and realized I never realized how tall the Texas cyclone was, and I was paralyzed. It was in that moment I could feel my grandmother's hand resting on my shoulder, and she looked me right in the eyes. Marc, I believe in you. You got this. Now we make it up to the top of the ride, and I look towards the back, and my inner voice kicks in, and I have a safety first inner voice. Whoa, big guy, what are you doing? The back of the ride, you'll get thrown right on out. Whoa. So I look to the front of the ride. Now, consistency is excellence, and my inner voice is most excellent. Hey, big guy, pump your brakes. Why on earth would you want to look death straight in the eye as you're doing 65 miles an hour? And then I looked to the center of the ride, and it was as if it were a warm blanket on a cool, crisp autumn's eve. My inner voice was like, great. Again, I was paralyzed in that moment, this time from indecision. Now I could feel my grandmother's hand resting on my shoulder again. And she looked me right in the eye, and she said, Marc, the only way we're going to ride this coaster is in the front seat. Let's do this. I could feel my body shaking again. The lap bar locks into place. The Texas cyclone lurks forward. Click, 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 click. We're at the top of the tallest hill. Time stands still. I can see my grandmother's face. She is smiling from ear to ear with her hands in the air. And I realize she's not giving me a hard time. She's not trying to give a 12-year-old a heart attack. She's my hero. She's teaching me that life is meant to be lived in the front seat. And in a blink of an eye, the day goes. And it wouldn't be till years later that I would be rocked to the core with another challenge as terrifying as the Texas cyclone. I spent forever trying to get into my dream job, and I finally landed it. And for 6 months, my boss wouldn't say a word to me. And then he comes up to me on a Monday morning and looks me right in the eye. Marc, I need someone to hire 3 interns and get them trained. Can you do it? Instantly, I was transported back to 12-year-old me, standing in front of the Texas cyclone, trembling with fear. All I could hear was my inner voice. Hey, Phil, easy. What if you fail? And then, click, 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 click. Next thing I know, though, I could feel my grandmother's hand on my shoulder, and I could hear her voice. I believe in you, Marc. You got this. And I looked my boss right in the eye, and I said, yes, I can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that paid off in dividends. I would go on to secure a promotion and a raise, and I would find my place in that company. Now, I would encourage each and every one of you to ask yourself, who is your hero that helped you get over your Texas cyclone? And you should thank them, because that way you will never have to hear. Click, 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 click.
Jeannette Gaiter, Out of the Shadows. Out of the Shadows, Jeannette Gaiter.
This incredible sunflower has a secret. It's a late bloomer. Like this sunflower, I too am a late bloomer. In this last year, I have run for public office, become an inspirational speaker, and even a published author. Want to know another secret? My life was not always like this. As a matter of fact, when I was 8 years old, I began a dark 54-year journey of invisibility and living in the shadows. Madam Toastmaster and honored guests, as you listen to my story, I invite you to find nuggets of truth from your own story, to relate to my story, and let those nuggets speak to your heart. There I was, peacefully sleeping, when a terrified voice screamed, Jeannette, I need your help right now. I look up through sleep-laden eyeballs. I see my father, tears streaming down his face. And my 8-year-old heart is pounding like a jackhammer because I have never seen my father cry before. He continues, your mother is trying to kill herself. She's locked herself in the bathroom. Maybe she'll listen to you. My mind whirs with terror as my mouth blurts, Mom, I can be perfect. I will never make you mad again. Please come out. A few moments later, after much pleading, hunched shoulders and a tear-streaked face emerged. She's alive! Life can go back to normal. Or can it? What am I going to do about all those perfectionistic promises that I made? I know. Mother tending. Over the next 10 years, I became an invisible shadow living expert. No beauty, no blooming, just waiting longingly for water and that warm, delightful sunlight to help me grow. But there was no time for growing. I had to keep my mother happy. When she was happy, she was alive. After a decade of living in that mode, I burned out and began to sprint to try and get away from that huge, self-imposed responsibility that I had taken on. Can anyone here relate? I sprint off to college where I find some awesome friends. They introduce me to the living God who changes my life forever. Together, God and my friends provide that warm, delightful sunlight and pour the necessary water into my life. And my seed, after a decade of living in the darkness, finally emerges above the ground. I am on my way to blooming. I am 22 today, and I am marrying my very best friend. He is a larger than life kind of guy. With his personality and my previous history with my mother, it is so cushy and comfortable for me to recede back into those shadows once more. My stem and my leaves, they return to the earth, as over the next 2 decades, I pour all of my energy into being who my mother, my husband, and my 9 children need me to be. Amazingly, after all of that, I've made it to 57. But the winds of life are changing. My heart aches as I say one last goodbye to my mother and my mother tending. 3 years later, my youngest son leaves home to pursue his dreams and goals. And 5 months after that, cancer steals the man that I am certain that I'm supposed to grow old with. My heart is grieving, broken, and lost. I realize I have no more lives to support. I am left with me, just me. This is terrifying, and I spend 2 more years lurking in those shadows until God reveals to me a 54-year panorama of my invisibility rut. As I shed a silent tear, he asked me, would you like to keep living this way? No, I want to grow and bloom. That statement begins my continuing journey out of those shadows. I'm now aware of my brokenness and my self-betrayal. I climb out of my rut by shining light on those dreams that I have crammed into the closet. Do they make a rut elevator? That sure would be easier. Now each day brings new choices about who I want to become and what I want to do. I want to encourage you to step out of your shadows, to dream big, and thrive. You can be a late bloomer like this strong and stately sunflower, but please don't be a never bloomer. Choose to bloom now, Madam Toastmaster.
Marni Myers, shine, shine, Marni Myers.
On a chilly spring morning, April 1927, Ansel Adams treks through Yosemite National Park. 40 pounds of camera equipment weighing him down. Adams climbs. He spends weeks scouting the perfect location to capture one single image. The cliff face of Half Dome, the most iconic rock formation in Yosemite. Adams sits for hours waiting for the sun to move high enough to shine on the cliff. He knows where to stand, what time of day to shoot, and how to frame his image. He patiently waits between frames to capture the light. Picture the glow on the mountaintop. Smell the smokiness in from the trees. Taste the crisp, clean sweetness in the air. What a majestic display. Click. Almost 1 century later, this photograph monolith, the face of Half Dome, remains one of his most compelling studies. He captured the light and let it shine. On a brisk Colorado day, April 2020, I spent time indoors, staring at the same 4 walls. Then I remember the importance of sunshine and embracing my 30-year passion as a fine art photographer. Photography is where I get lost. When in the zone, 3 to 4 hours flies. I begin weekly photo walks, venturing outdoors with my digital Canon camera, slowing my pace to discover something interesting. I cross the streets and head towards Henry Middle School. Hidden away in a dark corner is an abandoned bench, battered from heavy use. As I near the bench, I notice its fabulous flaws. Emulating Adams, I know where to stand, what time of day to shoot, and how to frame my image, capturing micro details of this bench to create images that look like blue-toned ski slopes. Click, and worn rooftops. Click, uncovering gems hidden in plain sight. Photography, it's where my soul yearns. I find joy in waiting to capture the light. I shoot because I see, and I want to share what I see with others. Ansel Adams' photograph of Half Dome was used by the Sierra Club as a visual aid for the environmental movement. This shot also launched his career. Adams captures Yosemite National Park. Click. I capture what's in my backyard. Click. We both wait for glimmers of light to shine on our subjects. Adams is teaching me to ignite my passion for photography, to pause and discover moments between frames, and to patiently wait for the light to shine. Today, we celebrate instant gratification with our digital devices. Adams took very long exposures and then developed his images to see what he captured. Unlike Ansel Adams' method of using film, there's no waiting. We capture an image and share it by scrolling, and move on, almost dismissing the act of creating in a flash. Fellow light seekers, what if we were to slow down and reflect how to let light in? Slow down to master a passion project. Slow down to play outdoors and get dirty. Slow down to capture an image. Click. Because we can. In a world filled with chaos and darkness, it's time to let light in. Pull back the curtains and let your light shine. Don't miss out on these small glimmers of light. They may be the only light that shines on your day. I heard this quote from singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Channel your inner Ansel Adams or Leonard Cohen and patiently wait for the light. Even in darkness, there is light. Bring light into your life and let it shine. Toastmaster.
There was unfortunately one disqualification on time.
Our third place goes to Marc April.
Yeah!
Congratulations.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Our second place winner, please help me congratulate Marni Myers.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Our first place winner this evening, representing District 26, is Keith Bailey. Congratulations.
All right.
Merry Christmas, Masters.
All
Oh my
right.
God.